Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to today's Reddit Quickie from the subreddit HFY, called Billy Bob's Space Trucker, Chapter 8. Written by Legal. The link to the original will be down below. And, as always, I hope that you enjoy. Butch Crusher Cross was staring at his mirror as he sat sidewise doing curls, watching his muscles bulge. The trick was that he couldn't let himself get too beefy or too soft. He had to maintain that perfect level of being built in order to impress people, while still being reasonable enough to actually move his arms around like a normal human being. No one respected you if your muscles were so big that you couldn't wipe your own ass. Plus, coming from a military, he knew how to get properly fit in such a way that your strength was still useful in a combat scenario. He took care to work out his mental muscles as well, keeping up on scientific journals as well as reading the latest philosophical pieces that was part of his training. There was a special place in his heart for his workout time, though. It was sacred to him, the time of the day that he wasn't supposed to be bothered. That's, of course, when the door to his office opened up and one of his aides decided to bother him. "Mr. President, now, how many times have I told you not to interrupt my workout? Sorry, Mr. President, but it's urgent." Butch sighed as he put down the weights. "How urgent? Are we under attack? Do I need to go to the dodecahedron?" "No, sir, there's no meeting with the military just yet, but we've got an incoming transmission from our ambassador." Butch sighed and shook his head. What did Joe do now? Piss in the Chancellor's soup. I swear to God himself that yokel is worse to diplomat. How does he freak up the relations with the UHG? The only other human nation there is. No sir, not Joe. Our Xeno ambassador. Butch paused and then he looked confused. Last he remembered America only had one ambassador, and that was the other humans. Our what? Jerry, sir. You got angry at him like last Thanksgiving after that joke that he made and made him our ambassador to the Xenos. Butch nodded, and that's as he remembered what had happened. He's still alive. Must be better at avoiding assassinations than I figured. He tapped his chin for a moment. Anyway, Jerry's a jerk. Why are you interrupting my workout for some cry for help that he's finally sending us? Sir, that's just it. He isn't asking for help. He's found a species that wants to form an alliance with us. Butch arched his eyebrows before he furrowed them once more in confusion. You mean the UHG, right? They got a hold of the wrong guy. No, they said that they want to form an alliance with the American clan. It's a species that we've never heard of. They say that they've been marginalized and wrongfully punished by the galactic government, and we might be able to help them achieve independence and freedom. Butch looked surprised now. I thought the galactic government was nothing but a bunch of happy space hippies that got angry when we defended ourselves in First Contact Wars. What are they talking about? Who even met them? Details are very sketchy, sir, but I'm told that one of their diplomats met an American and was so impressed that they told their leaders to seek out an alliance immediately. We can't track it down yet, sir, but apparently they're in trouble and he's defending their diplomat. Butch was impressed. Astounding. And who is this fine American? He grabbed his American flag cloak, an eagle standard, and sounded like he might need to hold a press conference soon. Intelligence on it, sir. Right now, all we know is he's called Billy Bob Space Trucker. Fricking Xenotech, why isn't there simply an Audi in the port or something? He mumbled as he looked over the security panel. It was clear that no one had expected this sort of situation when building the station. The arena had just been a central cargo room apparently, with dirt filled in to make it more, arena-like apparently. The outer cargo rooms hadn't been set up for security or keeping people imprisoned. He had opened the security panel and was trying to make sense of the options his translator was telling him that were written on the various buttons. Then he groaned out, but the awful voice came back on the PA. What? How dare you survive? Freaky space alien god demands that you die and be sacrificed. How the frick do I shut him up? Billy Bob angrily growled as he started to push buttons. But then he felt one of Emily's hands resting on him and he looked back. Then he stood aside as she stepped and tapped on the console. She was still shaken from whatever those scroll logs had done to her, but their bad dubstep clearly motivated. She pulled up a panel off the wall, getting the wires behind it. Billy Bob watched her pull several free, twisting some and sticking them back into the places and hitting a few buttons and the panel hanging by the wires that she was rearranging. Billy Bob, what's your species' tolerable voltage level? He looked at her for a moment. Frack if I know. Well, I'm hoping it's pretty high. I need you to plug that green cable into the blue port. He grabbed the cable, which looked a bit more teal to him than looked at her. When she nodded, he jammed it into the blue port and then jerked a bit as his body tensed and made a sound. He let go after a moment and sniffed. Then licked his lips. Now there's a funky taste. Emily pulled the panel off the wall completely. All right, I've got access from the station for a while to jolt charged it for an hour or two. What do you? He was ready, pulling out the Galactic Standard USB and plugging it in, accessing the playlist through the implant that he scrolled down. As music began to play through the PA, he nodded and headed towards the door. Then handed Emily his bat. He was going to need his guns for the fight to come. Emily followed behind him, opening up as they approached. They were in another cargo room, but that cargo room was connected to the main portion of the station that he'd seen before. They were out of those big street-like corridors and into shops and stalls. Just as they were taking stock of their position, the song started in earnest. America, fuck yeah! Billy Bob was moving as quick as a jog when he saw three Borks round the corner. Their targeting computers working on firing solution immediately. But Billy Bob didn't need stuff like that. He raised his M1911 and fired off 5 rounds. The Borks stood in plain sight, figuring their shields would protect them. But those were energy shields designed to stop energy weapons that were common across the galaxy. So the hollow points fired in a controlled explosion from his gun, traveling at around 800 feet per second, slammed into the unprotected Xeno flesh. Their bodies were slammed back against the wall. Behind them, in chunks of Xeno splattered across the surface, and all the time the resounding "Frack yeah!" Damn, Billy Bob muttered as he watched what happened to the Xenos hit by the bullets designed on a high-gravity planet to stop Death Warders did to the common Xenos. That's fricking awesome! A better shot would literally make their heads explode. He thought about trying it, and then remembered that he was very heavily outnumbered. Center shots were much better then. He thought off after a moment and ejected his magazine and pulled a new one free of his holster, slamming it into place. Still had one in the chamber and a fresh magazine. Taking a breath, he began to run forwards and a song blared through the speakers around the station. He heard a confused Borks asking what those small explosions were when he neared the corner of 3 dead ones had come around. He quickly peeked around and ducked back, and as he saw about 6 of them moving forward down the street around 40 yards down. Holstering his trusty handgun, he slung his Remington 2070 and gave it a quick kiss. Then he rounded the corner and he lifted it to his shoulder, bracing as he pulled the trigger. The buckshot spewed forward, cutting down the 2 Borks on the edge, partially shredding their bodies. But Billy Bob wasn't done. He racked the slide, shifted his aim, and fired. Rack the slide, shift, aim, fire. Rack, slide, shift, fire. The 4 shots and 6 of them were down. They were too shocked to get targeting solution, let alone fire back. From behind he heard what he figured was a dismayed squawk. By the heavenly deity, what do you have in that thing? Like I said, it fires small chunks at a few hundred feet per second. He said quickly as he began to jog forward, once more while loading another 4 shells into the chamber. As he jogged forward, though, he heard a commotion ahead of him and looked up to see those big armored bastards round the corner. Oh damn! In the background he heard the song come to an end. Moving quickly, he rolled forward, messing up with the armored Bork's targeting solution. As he scrolled through his playlist on his implant, he jumped up near the mech suite, spinning around as a new song began. While everybody's heard about the bird. Then he jumped up onto the thing's back, grabbing a handhold near the top before using his free hand to smash the butt of his shotgun against the small hatch that he saw. The Bork was twisting left and right, he spinning around to try and send him off, but Billy Bob was having none of that. Once he had smashed the hatch open, he grabbed a handful of wires inside and ripped them out. As they sparked and hissed, he dropped free of the metal-encased balk, and he dropped to the ground. The arms twitched as they tried to get back up on his feet. With the threat negated for the moment, Billy Bob turned to see 4 more balks standing behind him. Of course the mech wasn't alone. Damn! He jumped to the side and began to fire. The targeting computers needed precious seconds to adjust to his stronger legs, pushing his jump beyond the expected range of a standard Xeno. It seemed like he had another advantage being an unknown Xeno to Xenos. Rolling behind the stalls and cars that were exploding into a shower of junk, flying cloths, he could swear that it were chicken feathers. The problem for the Xenos was that he was only about 20 yards away, and he had a Remington. He stopped trying to find a good place to aim from, and instead just worked the muzzle in a vague direction before pulling the trigger. These balks weren't any smarter than the last, standing out in the open with the assumption that their shields would work. Instead, they were shredded one at a time. The last one turning and running in the direction that they'd come from. Billy Bob let this one run, however. He slung his shotgun and pulled his handgun to look at White's stance. As it neared the junction, it looked left. He's killed the others! He's unstoppable! Then he pulled the trigger. Sure enough, that fricker's head seemed to vanish in a red mist, and the body dropped to the ground. When Serpent Bird ended, he quickly scrolled down the playlist. His music started and began to walk away, reloading his weapons. Oh, let's go. Steve walks down the street with the broom pulled way down low. Ain't no sound but the sound of his feet. Machine guns ready to go. All hail the Queen, he muttered. Time to get to work. And so ends another chapter in the adventures of Billy Bob Space Trucker. I hope that you enjoyed. If you'd like to support the channel or the author, all the stuff is down below. And as always, I hope that you guys have a good one, and I'll see you in the next story. Cheers.